Hello and welcome to Get Into Games on Air, a podcast about board games and the people who play them. My name's Craig, and as always, joining me is my co-host, Becky, Mrs. Get Into Games.
Hi.
Hello. Well, this is episode 4. Who would have thought we would have made 4 whole episodes of a podcast and not just give up after 2?
Yeah.
Very impressive. I was impressed. Right. Well, today's very special episode, we asked out on Instagram for some ideas for episodes. And one of the ideas that popped up was games that we think are underrated and games that we think are overrated. So we'll be diving into that a bit later on. We're going to be talking about what's hitting our table this week. We're going to be talking about a local board game convention to boldly game at the National Space Centre that we went to this very weekend. Talking about our overrated and underrated games, and again, talking about your fantastic board game menus that you submitted across to us on the Instagram machine. So thank you for doing that. So, where do we start?
Well, shall we start with what we've been playing this week?
Let's do that. That sounds like a good idea.
We played a couple of games of Star Wars, the deck building game, because you were demoing that.
I was indeed. I was working for Asmodee this very weekend. The lovely guys and girls over there, and we were showing off some amazing Star Wars themed games. But we'll get into that in a little bit.
We had an awesome delivery, which we've been waiting for quite a long time.
Yes.
So Hero arrived on, I think it was Tuesday, which was very exciting. And it hit the table that day, I think.
It did indeed, yeah.
And it was surprising how quickly we remembered how to play. Picked it up again, and I think that will come to the table maybe again.
Yeah, considering we hadn't played it for 2 years, we played it at UKGE, fell in love with it, met Rob, obviously Rob, the creator of the game, as well as the designer of our logo. And yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. We backed the Kickstarter, backed and supported that all the way. And it's great to finally have it in-house, to be able to finally get it to the table and play. Rules came really easily to us. And it's a really good game. The production, the finished production is really good. Really good.
The last time we'd seen it, it had minis, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It had a few minis, yeah.
And then due to production costs and things, the minis were subbed out for what are they called?
Perspex, like plastic.
Acrylic
standees, yeah.
And I wasn't sure whether I would love it as much, but I actually think it was like definitely the right move, because we would have had to paint the minis in order to work out which characters were which, and the acrylic standees are perfect and very easy to find the characters, etc. There's a great box for storing them in. It works really nicely.
Yeah, the insert's really good as well for the game, which was really good.
However,
great job.
We didn't do so well when we played the game.
No, we definitely lost.
And we killed a lot of patience.
Yeah, it's not co-op. It is competitive, but we did equally as badly. Yeah. I think I was slightly worse than your badness.
I think we considered that I won, but we both
were very
much lost
in the negative. Yeah. And it was not great, because we both definitely lost.
We did. And then we played a lot of games online on BGA with various our friends.
Yeah.
So we played a game of Sea Salt and Paper. We played After Us. We played Forever Home. We played Sky Team, which was really nice because that was a new to us game.
We played that one, obviously, a 2-player game. Sky Team's really good. It's one that I definitely need to get in my collection. I've been going on about it. If you've spoken to me in passing or heard from me in passing, it's how much I really want to own a real physical copy of Sky Team. I don't know what I'll do when I get a real one. I'll be too excited to open it. But yeah, it's really good fun to play online. It's really good.
And to try and manage the landing of the aircraft.
Yeah, it's a really strange theme. Like, I don't know why it works. It works. It's so good. Like, The game is so good, but the theme kind of doesn't make sense, because why would a pilot and a co-pilot have limited communication when trying to land an aeroplane full of
I
passengers?
suppose they're concentrating on their various
Right.
parts. It's one of those that's like deceptively simple, and you think, oh well, this is going to be really easy, and then you crash the plane.
Yeah. And
Which
the
we did a
box
few
having
times.
like modules and stuff to make things harder.
It was good.
Yeah, really exciting to try and get that one at some point.
And then we played a couple of we played Patchwork, and we played Paint the Roses, which again, Paint the Roses, we always do really badly at it.
Yeah, I still don't think we've ever won Paint the Roses. I don't understand. I realistically don't think you can win. I don't think you can win Paint the Roses.
People must have won. We're just not very good.
If you've ever won Paint the Roses, call in. The lines are open, so feel free to just call in, and we'll get you on the line in a minute and see
they
if
don't
you.
want to embarrass you.
No, probably not. But yeah, it's really difficult. Paint the Roses is one of those ones that's like, nah.
I do enjoy playing it. It's kind of that puzzly, try to work out what the other person.
Yeah,
is
again,
doing.
limited communication, cooperative, works really well. Kind of, but it's kind of that puzzle of here's a random thing. But if you're unlucky that the deck has shapes or colours that don't match anything, then you just throw out stuff that is clueless.
Well, at one point we both had the same card, so you just played a card, I guessed it, and there was no way you were going to guess that I had exactly the same card. So I think you went through all the variations of guessing which card I had, and you're like, well, what is it in the end? And it was like the same card I just...
Yeah, I don't like the you have to guess every time. Like, you could have just put one card down and then you have to guess something. That's kind of, for me, is a bit of like, well, I don't have to guess because there's no information here to make a guess. So why are you making me make a guess? Like, I understand probably thematically the Queen of Hearts waits for no one.
She does
Off
not.
with your head and your funny croquet situation.
So, then yesterday...
Yes, yesterday.
You went worked at the Space Centre.
I did. I went to work.
And we went and enjoyed the Space Centre and everything it had to offer. It was very good fun.
It was a really good day. So at the National Space Centre in Leicestershire, there was a convention in the Space Centre called To Boldly Game. And it was like a mini UKGE. It was ran by UKGE and everyone there. And loads of companies had stalls. So I worked for Asmodee and I was doing the Star Wars deck building game. We also had the Star Wars Unlimited new TCG. So the promos of that and the prototypes of that on display to see. And I'm scared by that game. My fear is that that's a money pit that one day I will dive into. That is out on the March the 8th, so not long. And pre-orders are going in exceedingly well. So if you want to get a copy of Star Wars Unmatched, I would... Unlimited. Unmatched? Yeah.
That's because you've got Unmatched on the brain.
I've got Unmatched written down on a piece of paper here.
Star
Wars Unlimited. If you want that March the 8th, make sure you're pre-ordering that because that's going to sell like hot cakes. But if you like hot cakes, I don't like hot cakes, like muffins. And muffins are fine, but why would you want a hot cupcake?
I don't know.
The icing would melt.
Asmodee also had how do you say it?
Mlem.
Which
Space
is the
Cats.
Space Cats, and the artwork on that is really cute.
And it's got such a soft box. It's unbelievable.
Soft box.
The box is so soft. The box feels like you're stroking a cat. It's not like a cat because it's not furry, but it's so soft.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the softest box you'll ever feel. And I do love a soft box.
Nice.
Mlem.
There was some Shatterpoints set up.
Yeah, we had Star Wars Shatterpoints set up. So everyone had space-themed games, obviously, because it was in a space-themed Space Centre. There was, loads of...
So I saw Eurydice. Is that how you say it?
Possibly.
They had a game called Flick Fleet. I can't even say
that was next
Flick
to us.
Fleet.
Next to the Asmodee.
Which seemed to be a flicking sort of war game where you're taking people out. That looked really interesting. Alley Cat Games were there with Tinder Blocks and Kitten and one other I can't remember. Tinder Blocks is a great game. We bought it for my sister's boyfriend and it was we played it, didn't we, at New Year's?
Yeah.
And it's a dexterity game where you have to build up the fire, but you can only use one hand and a pair of tweezers, and the blocks are tiny.
That's it, yeah. And also you build everything, then you pick it all up and you have to put it on, rather than putting on individual blocks, which is a really cool twist on some of these dexterity games. It's quite nice. I do enjoy that one.
Camden Games were there with Asteroid Dice and their new game Space Invaders.
Shape Invaders, yeah.
Oh yeah, Shape Invaders, sorry.
Which is basically Space Invaders. But it's again there seems to be Flick Fleet and Shape Invaders, both
just like neon
on a table flicking things.
Neon pieces, and you have to try and knock
the opponent's base off, which looks really cool. And my thing with that is that the stand, they had it at Aircon last year. They'll probably have it at Aircon this year because it's their big game, and they had it at UKGE, and they had it there. They have a really nice table set up for it with a trough around the edge of the table. So when you flick stuff and it flies off the table, it goes in a trough. With me, I could imagine us flicking stuff on our kitchen table and pieces just end up underneath the fridge and underneath the washing machine and the dishwasher and the oven, which is a bit of a...
You need the lighting as well.
Yeah, they light it with neon lighting and they make it really
cool.
Whereas I don't know whether a high polished table... I don't know, but it looks fun. It is fun. We played it at Aircon, I remember.
Yeah. And Asteroid Dice is always good fun as well. And they've got the extra dice you can buy, like the lava dice and the is it like titanium dice or something like that?
Yeah, Asteroid Dice was was quite a hit last year.
I spent quite a lot of time in the imagination gaming area with the children, and they had massive versions of games that we have at home. So they had Koale, which is a puzzle, like Connect 4, that you have to pick up the pieces and move them to try and get 4 in a row.
Put the stones on top and then move the stones in like straight
And then
lines.
we learnt Quixo, which is another Gigamix game, where it's like noughts and crosses, but you pick up a cube, and then before you place it down, you have to push a row of the other cubes before you can place it.
Yeah, you have to slide them across, don't you?
It's just an interesting switch up on like noughts and crosses, basically. The children loved it. Then we played a huge version of Dr. Eureka, which was good. Which is you have to make patterns with. So you've got test tubes with 2 green balls, 2 red balls, 2 purple balls. You turn over a card and you have to make that pattern, but you have to not drop the balls as you pour them out of the different
you sort of have
test
to
tubes.
Pour 2 into 1 and then 1 into 1, and you have to keep swapping them around, don't you, until you can get the pattern matching.
There was another like noughts and crosses game where the pieces could eat smaller pieces. I can't remember what that was called.
It was the monster game, wasn't it?
Gobbler or something. Yeah, that was quite good. The children enjoyed that area. The Pandemonium Institute were there, but I didn't get to see them.
No.
Which was a big shame.
They were in the corner. They ran 2 games of Blood on the Clock Tower there. That's probably the only kind of non-spacey game that was there, but yeah. Good that they were there.
And then the children took part in lightsaber training, which has nothing to do with board games, but was incredibly fun. And that was run by the Saber Guild Lightsaber Academy.
Yeah.
And the guys there that were dressed up in their Star Wars outfits were just really lovely people, made the children feel very welcoming. And it was just a very lovely day. And there was the UK Garrison Stormtroopers there.
Yep, the 501st.
So I would definitely recommend it to people if it comes around again.
Yeah, I hope it will. I think last year they did a games event. Alley Cat Games hosted one in one of their conference rooms. There was a show on in the planetarium, and then you could go and play some games, and it was run by Alley Cat. And I think this has led on from that because it's done really well. And I think this has done really well. I think it definitely beat expectations. I think people thought it was going to be quite quiet. They weren't
really busy.
People I spoke to that were like the publishers and stuff. They thought it was going to be quite quiet. They didn't think it was going to be as busy as it was. It was pretty good. There was a lot. I didn't stop demoing. I think I had a 15-minute break that I ran away for a minute to catch a breath. But yeah,
there were people you could do painting minis there.
Yeah, there was miniatures. There were some Star Trek RPGs and Star Trek games.
Yeah.
There was loads of stuff.
One of those mega games. They were doing Den of Wolves.
Yeah.
I think it was the East Midlands mega games were there. So yeah, it was good. There was lots for everybody
lots to do. You
get involved with.
You managed to while away 7 hours.
I did.
In there. Obviously, it's the Space Center, so the Space Center already has loads of stuff to do. It already has Apollo 13 landings and space launches and all that sort of stuff.
Lots to do.
It is definitely a wonderful place to go. Yeah, so it's a Boulder game. It was a really good experience for me as someone who got to demo, because I just really enjoy doing that, teaching games, demoing games. Yeah, we got to do quite a lot of stuff there. And what is great about conventions, generally speaking, is having the ability to test out new games and play games that you don't necessarily own, so you can get used to them. And I just wish that there was a way that you could hopefully I just wish we could try a game out without having to buy it, without having to own it and keep it in your collection. I just wish there was a way that we could sort of try out games.
There is. And I tell you about this every single week. It's like we get to this segment of the podcast and it's like you've forgotten everything that happened previously.
Sorry, what?
Every time.
I'm confused.
Every time I tell you about Rent, Shuffle and Roll.
Sorry? Who?
Every time.
Rent, Shuffle and who now?
We're sponsored by Rent, Shuffle and Roll. Rent, Shuffle and Roll let you rent any of their 1,000 games on a monthly basis, so you can try before you buy or get access to a rolling selection of new games every month.
That's amazing, because that is exactly what I just said I wish there was.
This is tiresome. If you're feeling mysterious, you can take a look at their new Mystery Vault selection and see what you can solve. Use code GITG50 to support the show and get 50% off your first month.
That sounded like a discount code.
It is. And every week we mention this.
So what? GITG50?
Yes.
GITG50. So you go to rentshuffleandroll.co.uk, you type in the code GITG50, and you get 50% off the first month.
Yes.
Of this monthly rental service.
Yes, which you just said was a really good idea.
Where you can rent games and then send them off.
Just like a convention, which you said was a really good idea.
That does sound like a really good idea.
Really good idea.
So what I suggest you do is head over to rentshuffleandroll.co.uk, use the code GITG50 to get 50% off your first month, and in a way support the show by keeping the lights on and the microphone working and electricity flowing and the water pouring out of the tap. That wasn't. That's not in the ad read.
No,
I mean it's not. What ad read? What do you mean? What do you mean?
I don't know.
I've got a great idea.
I'm very good at remembering what I say week on week.
Okay, good. Hello and welcome to Get Into Games, a podcast about. No, we're not starting again. Okay, excellent news. Right, here we go. So some games are built different to other games. And some are hyped, and some are underhyped. Don't you agree?
I do.
That's good.
That wasn't the words we were using, though, so I'm totally confused where you were going.
Good. There are games that are overrated. There are games that are underrated. Yeah. And we're going to discuss our personal opinions on what overrated games and underrated games are. And I would add that none of the games that we're going to talk about being overrated games are bad games. No. We just feel that they might not deserve all the hype that they get.
I suppose it would be a good place to start. What do you class as an overrated game?
An overrated game, I would probably say, is something that is lauded above a lot of other games. To say it's really, really like the best game, but it's, for me, is missing something that makes it as good as what people say. Whether that is theme, whether that is components, whether that's mechanics, there's something about it that shouldn't be said, this is the best game of all time, because there are little bits that, for me, don't add up.
I would say that overrated is when something has a lot of hype and then you want to go out and buy it so that you're also in that little bubble of people who are also playing that game. And then it just, for whatever reason, doesn't quite live up to expectations. It's still a good game, but it just, like you said, misses the mark in some area. And it is just our opinion. There are people who, when we say the games that we think are overrated, will be like, no,
Yeah,
it's not. And it literally is just, in my opinion, I would pick a different game over this one to play.
yeah.
And that's literally it.
I think one thing also that colours mine, and this is a slightly off topic, but it's something that we might come back to on another episode, but something that I always find, especially in the social media bubble, is there's always these lovely photographs of pictures on Instagram and things like that. And a game that will come to mind, is things like Flamecraft. Now, Flamecraft, for me, I love Flamecraft. I think it's a fantastic game. And everyone who looks at photographs on social media look at Flamecraft and go, this is a wonderful game. But with those solid wooden components and those plastic minis and all of that stuff. But when you buy the physical game in the shop, you get cardboard tokens and none of that nice stuff, no nice inserts. So that kind of falls into that overrated sort of thing, because what you're getting isn't what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, I think people need to be more honest about what deluxe and what retailers.
I would also say that overrated games are often flooded across Instagram, and like you see it all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's a lot of hype around the new game. We've talked about that before. New games always seem to come with a lot of hype, and then, you know, does that live up 6 months, a year later? Is it still in people's minds?
Yeah, absolutely. One that was definitely that was Land versus Sea. That was huge for a hot minute, and then all of a sudden gone. I don't hear anyone talking about that now. It's just completely gone. But anyway,
so what's underrated for you? What are you basing your underrated rating on?
So I'm going to base my underrated rating on games that are not that heard from. You don't hear a huge amount of them. You hear a little bit about them, or games that are in the I really enjoy, and most people, or a lot of people might be going, yeah, it's fine, but it's something for me that just it gives me a feeling of some kind of happiness when I'm playing it. It fills my need, but it's not one that people seem to be like, this is great, this is a wonderful experience. I don't know, just things that are not really, you don't really hear people talk about very often.
I think that my underrated games in my list are games that weren't on my radar, and then are like hidden gem type things.
Yeah.
I don't play them all the time, but I'm glad they're in my collection. And they tend to be older games. Like I was looking it up, and I think the underrated game, they may have had hype back in the day, but now they don't have hype. That they're sort of forgotten gems. Okay.
So where should we start? Underrated or overrated?
I think underrated is probably less polarizing.
So we start with overrated and hope they forget about that and stay...
No, let's start with underrated and keep them waiting.
Oh, keep them listening, yeah. Good idea.
So
no timestamps in this episode.
My first underrated game is a game that's fairly new to us.
Very new.
How do you know what I'm going to say?
You're going to say Monopoly.
No. It is a Birdwood game, who are the people who make Dog Park, I believe.
Correct.
The designers are Lottie and Jack Hazel, and the artist is Dan May and Dominique Vassil. I probably said that wrong.
Okay.
And it is Forever Home. Now, we've played this a few times, and I love puzzle games. And this is a puzzly pattern building game about second chances for shelter dogs. It's tile placement and it's set collection. And it's just a really nice game to play. And I don't hear that much about it. It's not fancy. There's little cardboard tokens of the different coloured dogs. And, it's perfectly nice. But it's just, it's not fancy.
No,
but
it's a really good game. It does scale well. I really enjoy it at 2.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy it at 2-player because you can there's a bit more strategy at 2-player because when you play at higher player, you can't think too far down. You can think, right, when my next turn I'm going to do this, that and the other, because by the time if you're playing it at 4, by the time it's your turn, the dogs or the cards that you want are not going to be there. So, but at 2-player, you really can plan your moves a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But I do like it at 4. We played it at 4 the other day and I enjoyed it. We played it at 3 and I remember it being a bit, I think we played it with our daughter and it was a bit chaotic because our daughter's just an agent of chaos. I don't know where she gets that from at all.
No idea.
But yeah, I did enjoy it. We played it on BGA and the BGA version of it is very good. Really good.
But I think like Dog Park had a lot of hype, but I certainly, and I may be wrong and people may be shouting, no, it has loads of hype, but I haven't seen lots about it on Instagram. I haven't seen lots of people talking about it. It seems to have gone under the radar, but it's a really nice puzzle game.
Yeah, it's a new game. It's relatively new. It's a 2023 game, but it sort of came with a whisper and has just lived under the radar, but it's actually really nice and really puzzly.
And I'm not a big fan of dog games. I wouldn't I wouldn't be drawn to a dog game because I'm more a cat person, but yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. It's definitely a game with a tacked-on theme. It doesn't need to be about dogs.
No.
But
but equally it's not. It doesn't detract from the game.
No, it's an abstract game with a bit of a Cascadia feel. Yeah, it's nice. Really nice little game.
What is your first underrated game?
My first underrated game I'm going to go with is going to be Histrio from Bombix Games. Yes. So Histrio is you're a travelling theatre company of anthropomorphized animals because we love that. We love that word and we love animals and we love things. And it's a game with a badger in it.
Yes.
And it's a game with a turtle in it.
Yeah.
And lots of animals, as previously mentioned. But yeah, you are basically trying to put on a performance to whichever way however the king is feeling. So you are you're taking your travelling theatre productions to a village. You're getting acts. You're playing acts into your tableau, and the king's mood is always changing. So this little cardboard theatre that you have physically spins around and goes to the red side if he wants a tragedy, or the gold side if he wants a comedy, and it's constantly spinning. Production's great. You have these little director chickens that you put on the stage. You've got these really cool cards with this beautiful art.
And the caravans.
All of that stuff is just really cool. I mean, it's a really nice game. It is one that kind of. I think there's some confusing rules.
Really?
I think every time I suppose we don't play it enough, but every time we play it, there's the first act and the second act, but the 2 rounds of it always.
The scoring.
The scoring gets a bit like muddled. It feels.
I really like the fact that you all have the same numbered cards, and then you play a card, but it's sort of hidden, and you reveal it. And if you've gone to a different place, then you can
take the cards,
take what's there. But if you go to the same place as somebody else, then
all the cards get discarded and you lose everything. Yeah,
which is quite nice.
Yeah, and the plastic money's cool though. But yeah, there's some really cool mechanics on that side of things, and then there's these objective cards that give you extra points and extra money if you have specific objectives. So you have these specific people coming to your theatre shows. It's just a really good game, and theatre is quite a big thing for me. I do enjoy a bit of the old dramas and a bit of the old theatres, and it's a very nice game. I do enjoy it, and everyone should play it. I don't know if it's still in print.
I don't know.
Because we got our copy on eBay, I think. We got ours second hand.
We did.
So I don't know if you can still get it, but if you can grab a copy,
grab it.
Yeah, because it's really good.
My second underrated game is kind of a social deduction game, but it's not on the level of Blood on the Clock Tower or Werewolf or anything like that. It is Deception Murder in Hong Kong. The designer is Toby Ho, and the publisher is Jolly Thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And it can play 4 to 12 players, but it plays quite quickly. So it says it plays in 20 minutes, and you can play many rounds of it. But essentially, there's three rounds in a game, but that will be over in 20 minutes. And your investigators solving a murder case. The killer turns out to be one of the investigators, and you've got to try and work out how they killed the victim. And one of the players is a forensic scientist, and they are giving clues, but they can't say anything, so they have to put the bullets on bits of information. So it might be, where did the murder take place? And they've got to lead you to whatever the killer has decided is the weapon and the clue, basically. And it's a really good sort of quick social deduction game.
Yeah.
That you can play, and it's just a laugh, really. But I don't think I've heard many people playing it.
No, yeah, it's not one that you hear loads about, like loads. You don't see it all the time. What I really like about it is that the quote unquote storyteller in the game feels like they're more actively participating in the game, because the way they have to give clues feels very like how you feel when in Codenames you're trying to see how many words you can fit under one clue. You have to kind of put these bullet tokens on 5 of these different clues, but they could just be, what does the person look like, or is he physically fit or overweight, or and
then so you listen to what people are saying, and then after the first round of people not guessing or talking about who they think it might be, the then forensic scientist can take back one of the clue cards and exchange it for another and give a different clue. So you're right. They're constantly involved rather than just sitting back watching the story unfold, which is sometimes what happens with Blood on the Clock Tower. If you're running a story, you just watch it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, sometimes you have a little bit of that, but yeah, it just gives you a bit more stuff to do, even though you're leading this story, and it's completely random. So one game one person might be the forensic scientist, but the next game someone else might be, or you might be the killer or the witness or the.
I think, as somebody who likes to play Blood on the Clock Tower, I think it's a really good way of getting your friends or people who won't immediately play Clock Tower getting into it a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good way to get people into. It's in the same sort of vein as like Avalon or the Resistance is, to get people into social deduction without that, or just stick them in front of the traitors for a while and see what happens. Cool. My second one is a game from Atlas Games. Mm-hmm. It is a game that is sometimes available and often like rocking horse poo to find. And that is Dice Miner. Dice Miner is the perfect filler game. It's in Dice Miner, you have a cardboard mountain. If you have the deluxe version, you have a nice plastic, noisy mountain. But you have a nice cardboard mountain, and you roll in loads of dice. And there's dice on a mountain, and on the mountain you can draw dice from the top, or as long as you can see two sides of the dice, you can draw the dice. All the dice have different faces. You have numbered 1 to 5 dice, which are tunnel dice. You have hazard dice. You have treasure dice. You have dice with like pickaxes and shields and such as like. So you have loads of different types of dice that you're trying to score, different ways of scoring different points. Like the tunnel dice, you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order to be able to score like a maximum of 15 points, or 1, 2, 3 to 6 points, that kind of thing. And it's just a really easy dice game. It feels really nice when you have to roll a huge amount of dice. It's just like really therapeutic just to have a big load of dice in your hands and just chuck them. But it's quick and easy.
There's beer on some of the faces of the dice. And if you get one of those, you can choose on your turn to roll it to somebody else to get the chance to pick 2 things off the mountain, which it just adds that level of player choice to that. Do I give this potentially lucrative dice to another player in order to get 2 lucrative dice for me, or do I hold back and that's actually useless to me? So
there's quite a bit of strategy involved, even though it is quite light, and it's really easy to teach. Young gamers or older gamers or anyone can just get involved with it. Just get it to the table between games. It's just the perfect kind of game. It's just unfortunate. It's really difficult to get hold of sometimes. It just disappears and then it never comes back. But it's Dice Miner, very, very good. Everyone should definitely give that one a go.
My next game is a big potato game. Which is called What Next, and the designer is Ed Nauyakis, I think.
Okay.
It's a pick your path adventure. There are 3 different stories. You read through the cards and you follow what it says, and you can choose your path, and then you will come to dexterity/skill challenges that you have to partake in order to move forward. If you can't do this, the challenge, then you have to put a peril piece on the Tower of Peril, and you win if you get to the end of the adventure. You lose if you knock over the Tower of Peril. I've always loved those sort of pick your path books. I think I read loads when I was a child, where you could turn to a certain page and then it told you the rest of the story. It's a great one to play with family. Sort of you could play it at a party, I guess. Everyone can get involved. And then there's light and dark sides of the cards. So there's a disc that you turn each time you read a card, and when the power goes out or you run out of power, then you turn to the dark side, and that's more perilous. I quite like that mechanic, but it's just really good fun, and I don't hear enough people talking about it.
It's a really good, I think it works well with kids. It works well with just fun party. It's one that I give out at the cafe quite often. It's quite a good just game for everyone to have a laugh, everyone just to get involved with. There's some really silly challenges like dropping cards, flicking cards, catching cards, and flicking discs and trying to blindly find stuff out of a bag. There's loads of really, and the stories that you follow are really silly. There's one about a giant koala, a robot. There's loads of really cool little stories.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, my number 3 game is a game called Transmissions. Transmissions is it's like a rondel kind of game. You have a deck of cards. Everyone has the same deck of cards that you draw up, and you move all the robots. So none of these really cute robot minis are yours particular. So you move all these robots around. You're gaining resources. You're picking up junk. You're picking up resources to be able to spend on the junk that you find, like a pair of socks and a toaster and a TV and random things, and you're getting energy, putting a pipeline together as well. So there's like a puzzle of pipeline There's some objectives of getting pieces with butterflies and robins on. There's just lots of little puzzly bits, and it's definitely one of those games that is just a really cozy kind of game that there's a bit of strategy moving these robots around the rondel, working out which way is the best way to do it to get you the most points, upgrading your robots so every robot can do a basic thing, and then as you play the game more and more, the robot can do more, and you can choose which robot for you does what. So you can make the green robot move further. You can make make one robot, the yellow robot, move the other way, or something like that. So there's a lot of different choices, and production-wise, my God,
the robots are so cute.
It's the most beautiful game. It's so nice. It's just so I'm quite a box art tart, and
what?
A box art tart.
A box art tart.
A box art
I've not
tart.
heard of that before.
That's one of them. And if you give me great components and great art, I'll just buy it. Thanks.
There's also quite a lot of ways to win. So you can go for your pipeline, or you can go for, because if you fill up your robot board, then you can score extra points.
Yep, you get points.
You can get objective cards and things. So yeah, it's quite varied the way you can go about winning.
So it's quite it's quite relaxing. It's very straightforward to play, very easy to teach. It's just quite quick, and people just don't. I don't. When you see it online, you see it online, but I don't. I know. I think I could tell you the accounts that own that game.
Yeah.
Like if people are on Instagram or anything, I can tell you who has that game,
mm-hmm.
and I can go, they have that game, they have that game, they have that game. But I don't know if anyone else has that game because no one wants to talk about it. So please talk about it.
My next game, which is underrated, is a game called Dungeon Academy, by Julian Alain and published by Matago. Do you say it Matago? Not Matagot. Matago. Okay. I don't know. I'm asking you.
Is it
the expert?
Dungeon Academy, isn't that the op?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's sort of would you consider it a roll and write?
It is a roll and write, yeah. So, it's a flip and write. No, it's a roll and write. It's dice and you're writing.
So you have 4 dungeons, and each dungeon is a 4x4 grid. There's 4 rounds, and you have a character card, and you have some life, which are red cubes, and you have some mana, which is blue cubes, and your character has a special power. You roll the 16 dice into the dungeon, which will give you a different configuration of blue monsters, red monsters, potions, etc. The idea being that you have only a limited time to draw your way out of the dungeon, but you have to make sure that you balance your cubes with how many monsters you want to defeat and how much potion you pick up so that you don't lose health. You get points for being the first person to get out of the dungeon safely, and it's just really good fun.
Yeah, you get points for all the monsters. If you're the person that gets the most, the red monsters or yellow monsters, every time you go through a monster, you need to make sure you've got potions because otherwise you're going to lose the health. So you might die in the middle of the dungeon, which you don't want to do. It's really good.
I've just not seen another roll and write quite like it. It's just different, and I think it will stay in our collection for that reason because we just don't have anything that's like it really.
It's a really interesting. It's like a dungeon crawling roll and write, and because the dice are always going to be different, it's so variable. And as you go through the rounds, you add a new dice, don't you? Take out one of the basic dice and you put a new dice with a big monster in, or extra treasure, or a key, or something.
And you can change the time that you get to do it. So you could start off with a minute, but then you could do 45 seconds. So there's quite a lot of replayability if you get really good at it. I've not yet got really good at it.
No. And I like the fact that it's the dice the way you are facing the board rather than there's not a top and a bottom. So it's kind of also that makes it different for everybody as well who's playing it. It's a good choice. It's a fun little game.
Go on then.
Okay, my number 4 is a game from Board and Dice, which is weird to have an underrated game from Board and Dice. But I do also feel that this game from Board and Dice also doesn't really fit the Board and Dice normal mold. And that game is Mandala Stones. Now, this game, I believe, was released around the pandemic, and I think that has had a major effect on how many people have got it into their hands. Because in Mandala Stones, you are artists, and you're placing these blocks that are artists to collect, and you collect the 4 stones around them, and then you are putting them on a player board, and you can choose to either get more stones or choose to score. And it's got a really interesting scoring method of you can score like multiple layers, but you only ever take the top stone off, so you want them all to be the same color to get the most points out of it, and then you end up putting them on this other board that scores you the victory points. And it's just a really good abstract puzzle. It's really pretty. It's got like circular Azul style kind of tiles. It's really good. It's I really like it. I don't think you're not quite as.
I'm not as excited by it as you, but I will play it. Like it's nice.
Yeah.
I just don't always understand. You're very good at abstract games. I don't always see how I can best score, so I'll just do what I think, and then you'll be like, erasing it.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that you can, like, sometimes you can start behind, but you can gradually, you can get like a first couple of rounds and you're like, oh, I'm not scoring very well, but then all of a sudden everything just comes together. You manage to move, so everything just
I think
sits
also
pretty.
There's objective cards, and I think sometimes that can steer you in a certain direction, but actually the value of points you get for scoring your objective cards doesn't sort of matter that much.
Yeah.
So it's like an add-on, but that's not how you should play it.
It's definitely got the thing that Parks has got, is you've got an objective card, or even to a point Wingspan, but you've got an objective card, but if you concentrate on the objective card, the objective card's only worth like 2 points. Like, it's not
Which
really
I
going to
sometimes
change.
do.
Yeah, but it's not going to actually change the score at the end if you've aimed for something that's not that lucrative.
I tend to think that if you've been given an objective card, that's the thing that you should do. Then I have to follow that rule, and then that doesn't always.
Yeah,
end
that's
up
definitely a thing that doesn't work in Parks. Definitely don't bother with the objectives; they're not worth it.
So my last underrated game is a game called Take It to the Limit, which was designed by, well, I don't know his first name. I've just written Burley. That can't be his name.
Burley game, Pete.
But it's published by Burley Games.
Pete.
And it is another puzzle game. Apparently it's a bigger version of Take It Easy, but we don't have Take It Easy, so it's just Take It to the Limit. There are 64 hexagonal tiles. You take your coloured set of tiles. You have a separate sort of scrapyard area, and you're trying to make rows or columns of matching pipes. So if you had the 12 pipes, you get a multiplier. So if you manage to get a row of 12 uninterrupted, say 7 uninterrupted pipes that are all value 12, then you would get 7 times 12 points at the end. But it's really difficult to score all your rows, because eventually you have to put something down, and it might be that you have to put a 5 value where you really wanted a 12 value, and on the hexagonal tiles there's sort of 3 colours on each tile, so it's really puzzly as to how you place those tiles. And you can use the scrapyard, but there's only limited spaces on the scrapyard.
9 spaces, isn't there? Yeah.
So once you've filled all that in, you are just going to have to put it on your main board.
But you also have to fill in your scrapyard, because otherwise you lose points.
Yeah.
There are bonuses.
So it's just a really fun game. And I think lots of the Burley games are similar, because I think when we went to UKG, they've got lots of similar type of puzzle mathy games. But it's really good. It's
a real brain burner. I love it, but it is ouch. It's there's like the pipes that if you actually complete like 3 of them, there's a bronze, silver, and a gold. And if you like complete the gold one, that means you get the perfect line of all of those pipes. You get an extra like
Bonus.
60 points. It's just madness, but it's tough. I got John and Rachel to play Take It Easy, and they really enjoyed it. But Take It to the Limit just literally takes it to the limit. But yeah, Burley Games are really good. They do like Camisado, which is like this chess kind of game. They did the Frango's version of Can't Stop and Billabong and Mahe. Yeah, some really good games that they produce.
But they're sort of an underrated
Yeah.
publisher.
Yeah,
I'd say.
they really are. They're not. They're always at UKGE. They're always there. The Pete
Seems to be like a
and
family.
Son, it is, yeah. Him
run.
and his son are always there, running the stand at the conventions. The conventions, they're always busy at the convention. So
yeah, they sell out because I think we were looking to pick up a game and might be in Can't Stop actually. I don't know.
It was the time we were trying to get Can't Stop, yeah.
And we had to make a decision because there weren't that many left. So they are obviously do well, but really I don't hear about their games very often.
Their prices the games aren't actually that expensive, really. They're good production, good quality, really good games, and they don't generally tend to be that expensive, which is quite nice in a hobby when everything costs £1 million.
Right. Your last underrated game.
My last underrated game is not underrated. However,
my last underrated game is not underrated.
Right.
I think you're going to have to explain that.
My last underrated game is not underrated because it should be universally loved because it's a brilliant game. But I don't think it's universally loved as much as it should be.
I know what it is, but do you think
That's
it is...
because you can see my piece of paper.
Do you think it's because it's an older game now? Like it's lost its hype?
I don't know when it came out. It probably has lost its hype to a point, but it should be in conversation with Cascadias and Acropolises. It should be when we say to each other at the table, should we play Cascadia? Should we play Acropolis? Should we play something puzzly like that? We should be saying, let's play Tiny Towns. Because Tiny Towns is phenomenal. It's so good. It's so puzzly. So if you haven't played Tiny Towns before, you have a little, I think it's 5x5 grid or 6x6 grid. I can't even remember. Might be 8x8. No, it's not that big. 6x6 grid.
No, 5.
10?
No.
It's a big square. You have a big square grid. And you have one person who is the master builder. I said it. And they are taking cubes. They pick a colour of a cube that you can draw and you put it on your board, and then the next person will do the same. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build these. You've got all these other buildings to build, and
you're building a town.
You're building a town, but you have to have specific cubes in a specific shape. So it's a polyomino game. It's a polyomino game, but there's physically no polyominoes. And then once you've put the polyomino shape in cubes, you then replace it and put the building in one of those cubes it's taken up. Yeah. And each building has its own asymmetrical power, and again, there's loads of buildings. But
it's not a power, I wouldn't say. It's like
you have to have way it scores.
You have to have a farm and a cottage, or the cottage feeds the farm, and you have to have one for each cottage.
Yeah, and then there's some that has to be these buildings. They score extra if you put them next to a well, or there's the factory which gives you an extra cube, and you can then swap the cube for it and stuff like that. It's just so good. We don't play it enough, to be fair, but I really like it. I just think it's a great game, and it should be in that kind of. It didn't win. This is my thing. Cascadia won awards. It won Spiel des Jahres. It was the best game, but Tiny Towns didn't win an award as far as I'm aware. It probably won some kind of award. Probably says it on the box right behind me, but it's definitely should be in more conversations as far as very, very good puzzly, polyomino-y,
I think that
gamey-only. And do you know what's on the box? When you look at the box, do you know what you are in Tiny Towns? Do you know what you are? You're anthropomorphized animals.
Yeah.
And that's very important in board games.
What I was going to say is I think that a lot of our underrated games, one, are puzzle games. Two, are games that don't necessarily have the table presence that games nowadays have.
Yeah.
Like often now games will have something like White Castle has the bridges and Yak has the, carts with the... Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's often now something that makes it stand out, but the games we've chosen are sort of really good games, but they don't have anything like wow about them. It's just a puzzle.
The toy factor,
Yes,
you might call it.
Right,
Oh,
so
God.
overrated games. We are not going to go into publishers and artists because we assume that because they're overrated, you'll know all about them.
And you'll hate us forever.
So I think we're just going to tell you what the overrated game is.
And why we're wrong and you're right. No? Or why you're wrong and we're right. Or have a lovely day. Right.
Or you've turned off because you don't want to hear it.
You don't. You're sad now. You're
so,
cried.
My first overrated game is Sleeping Gods. Now, as we said at the start, these are all games that we think are great. They are good games, but they had a lot of hype, or we think that they don't live up quite to the hype that they got. Sleeping Gods for me is never going to get to the table as much as it should, and therefore it cannot have the hype that it has. Everybody wanted it when it first came out. It was like, oh look, there's a book and you can go off in all sorts of directions and it's brilliant, but I don't know a great deal of people who can give up the amount of time that game warrants to play it over and over again to find all the things that you're supposed to find.
Yeah.
I think it's a great game. It's probably going to stay in our collection because we can't bear to part with it, and it is so pretty, and we do have every intention of getting it to the table. But for me...
So this may change. This
It might, yeah. But... And people who have played it and managed to do it, I'm sure, think that the hype is genuine and deserved. But I just don't feel like for the amount of hype that it got, that it can warrant it for a game that essentially comes to the table once a year, or if that.
Yeah, my thing with it is that you can only explore a certain amount. So you're doing the story, and you can only go a certain amount in the certain amount of rounds within the game that you have, which I think is 3. I can't remember. You can only go so far. Then that's the end of the game, of that game. Then you pack it away, and then you do it again, but then you go in a different direction. And then you do your few rounds, you can only get so far. Then you stop and you finish, you put it away. And then you start again, and you go in a different direction. And to me, it's a sandbox game with a severe edge to the sandbox. You can't just keep going. And also, it's really hard and you'll just die. That's the other thing I found.
Well, I don't think we can't say, because we haven't played it enough to say whether it is or it isn't. But I just... Yeah, it's from the hype perspective, I just don't think it.
Yeah, I don't. It's beautiful. It's a lovely story, but it just doesn't. For me, it just doesn't cut the mustard.
Was that on your list as well?
It was on my list, but I'm going to now have to come up with a 5th one on the fly.
Yeah, we can just have that. We can have that shared.
The podcast.
We can have that shared.
We can share.
Share it. Yeah.
So does that mean you're going to go again?
Really? Okay.
Well, I don't know. We were sharing.
So the next one I know is going to not be agreed with by one of our friends.
Probably lots of them.
So I think I had a friend, and I probably don't have a friend after I've said this. So my second overrated game is Obsession. Sorry, PJ. It is a good game, don't get me wrong. I like playing it. But for me, everyone wanted it, and there was all this hype about the English household and running the household. And for me, it's just putting tiles out underneath a board that doesn't feel like you are running an English house. Like, you can buy the playing field or whatever it is, or the billiards room, and you can put it underneath your playing and you get money. But there's, I don't know, there's just not enough. The theme doesn't come through. Like,
That's
I could
the
be
problem.
doing, and it's beautiful, and the box that you put the stuff in is beautiful, and it's well organized, and it's well thought out, and it is a brilliant game, and I love playing it. But for me, the hype is just too much.
Yeah, I think production is great. I think theme is I don't always feel the theme coming across. Yeah, you get the cards, fine, but I don't feel mechanically. I think it's a fantastic game. I really like the whole mechanics of the game in general. I think it's brilliant. I really enjoy it. The theme just doesn't do it for me. Thematically, the theme doesn't come out. I really enjoy the game. I really enjoy playing the game. I just think the theme isn't. It just doesn't. Yeah, the theme's not there. But yeah,
But it is a great game, and you should definitely check it out.
you should definitely play it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a weird one because I think like thematically, I don't feel the theme because I like theme in the game, but it doesn't. Obviously, there's no real artwork other than these black and white photographs on the cards. There's no other real artwork that tells me where we are. Like at least in.
Although you still do want to go and visit the house.
Yeah, definitely. But between two castles and stuff have like really cool
The pictures
artwork
of the rooms
on the tiles. If the pictures of the rooms are on the tiles, you might have me. Okay, my overrated game. My second, although my first, because we shared one.
Wait, it's still a second.
Which, if you've heard on another podcast, you might have heard me speak about this. But my overrated game is Yahtzee with characters and cards. It's Dice Throne. Dice Throne's really popular. I don't know why. Dice Throne's Yahtzee.
We play it.
Yeah.
It's quite fun.
It's Yahtzee's fun.
But I don't think you need all the different versions. You need one version of Dice Throne. You don't need several versions.
Yeah, so we've got the Marvel Dice Throne. We've got 8 characters we've got.
Mm-hmm.
And
that is enough.
All of them feel the same. All I'm doing is
variations on a theme.
Having a picture of a different person. I don't feel
they have their powers, don't they?
But I don't feel like I'm Captain Marvel fighting Spider-Man. I feel like I'm very lucky with the dice and you're not, or you're very lucky with the dice and I'm not.
Yeah, if you don't like dice rolling and the luck that's involved with that, then...
And you play the cards to do the things, and the things don't change because the things that I can do are the things that you can do.
See, I tend to prefer like Kapow, because
Kapow.
You're making your luck, so you can choose which faces you put on the dice, which then feels like, oh, I've engineered this. Whereas it is more luck based with dice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, will these 5 faces all come up at once?
That's it. Kapow is a better game. I've said it. And I'm going to not say any more than that.
And this will be the last podcast because
you ever hear.
Everybody
because all the Dice Throne ninjas are coming after me.
Wait, it gets worse.
Okay, good.
So, my third overrated game, and I just don't get it, and I know people love it, is Heat. And I know you like it, but I would play any other racing game. Downforce, Formula D, Rallyman GT, over playing Heat. I do not understand it. I do not understand the overheating element thing. I don't know. It goes over my head. I would rather fiddle with the gear stick in Formula D. I just don't know. I don't know. For me, it just doesn't work.
I enjoy it. I enjoy racing games. I don't know why I enjoy them. I just enjoy them. I do enjoy Heat. I think it's quite good. I do think it's the quickest. It's the most race feeling racing game.
See, I don't feel that at all.
I do feel like it moves, but I do feel like it's very clunky.
I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with my cards. I think that's the problem.
You play, it's. I don't know. There is something about it, and I've heard people say, "Oh, at high player counts, it takes 3 hours to play," which I don't think it does.
I don't know. We played our version, and we've played on
online.
BGA, and I think the game I played on BGA, I think I just totally lost the will to live because I just kept spinning out. Because it's not the sort of game you can just leave and keep playing over several days. It's not that kind of game. I don't know. Just to me, I know there's a lot of hype about it and people love it, but I just don't get it.
Yeah, I do think I definitely prefer Rallyman GT. There's something about Rallyman GT that I like, but then again, there's dice luck in Rallyman GT that you've got it or you haven't, so there's issues there. Downforce is great, but also don't know whether that would technically class as a racing game. And the best racing game is the Quest for El Dorado, so that's another thing. But Heat, yeah, I can agree with that. I can understand why it's not. I don't necessarily think it's the best racing game ever, so therefore I do probably think it's overrated. And on BGG, it is number one in all racing games. Oh. So,
well, I do not agree. BGG.
I do want to try Flamme Rouge because I think Flamme Rouge is a more simplified version of Heat. I think some of the confusion and the complications from Heat is not in there, but that's another thing. My number 3 is everyone else's number 1. It's Brass Birmingham. I think that's pretty much sealed this podcast's fate. I
like Brass Birmingham. We don't play it enough, but
I
like it.
don't mind Brass Birmingham. I think it's fine.
I think the thing is with Brass Birmingham is that I would love to love it because I love the theme. My mum and dad have a narrowboat. Like, I like the idea of it changing from narrowboats to rail. I love all of that. I think the rules overhead means that it doesn't get to the table. But I think it would be a good game if it did get to the table.
1 million components, 1 million little cardboard things. That's better with my Folded Space insert. Thank you very much, Folded Space. Not a sponsor, but if you want to be a sponsor, I mean, I don't mind if you want to be a sponsor. You're not a sponsor, but you can be. Anyway, makes life easier for setup, much easier. However, it just, to me, it's not the best board game of all time.
So how come it is for everybody else?
Well,
must be something you're doing wrong.
Clearly, Monopoly is the best game ever made.
What?
Yeah.
Right, get out the house.
So that was Brass Birmingham. There you go.
My next overrated game is a game that currently has a lot of hype. I mean, you wanted it. As soon as you saw somebody else have it, you were like, I need this game in my life. And then we played it recently.
Twice?
A few times. I think we played it 3 times now.
Maybe.
And it is beautiful, but it just doesn't do anything for me. And that is 3 Ring Circus. I'm just not sure whether we'll be talking about it in a few years' time, whether it will still be on people's radar. I just don't know whether it's good enough to last the test of time. At the moment, it's cool. It looks cool in Instagram photos. It looks great. The little circus tents really draw people in. It's a good game, but I'm just not sure it lives up to.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. I don't really see it as popular as it. I think by UKGE by June there'll be more stuff, and I think this will be. It will go in. It will be forgotten. I think there's some really cool mechanics that it does. There's some really clever stuff that it does. It is quite fun. It's quite quick. There's some. I would like to play it with the full player count. I think that's when it will shine. But there's some clunky rules. The rulebook's not great, but I think the rulebook isn't fantastic because I think it's a direct translation from another language. Hence why there are
some mistakes. There
are things. There are definitely spelling mistakes. There's lots of them.
Circus.
3 Ring Circus with extra R's. But yeah,
I think there's a couple. So when we've played it, we had a couple of questions, but it just wasn't easy to find the answer in the rulebook.
Which I think is because of direct translation. Yeah. That's the only thing I can think.
It's fine, and it's nice to have in the collection, and it's different to other things we have in the collection. It just is a bit overrated at the minute.
Yes. My next one is going to upset a few people, maybe.
I think it will.
But I don't know if it's truly that overrated. My next one is 10 Penny Parks. Now, Tenpenny Parks is a very nice game. It is got a really cool little rondel circus tent. What is the theme with circuses going wrong today? A circus tent that you turn to basically place your worker. Everything is super tight. So it's a worker placement polyomino tile laying game. The worker placement spots are really tight. There's very few of them when you go, and if you're playing it with a higher player count, it's much tighter. So money is quite tight. When you're placing your polyominoes, one thing I do like, which is quite unique, is that the polyominoes can't touch. They can only go like corner to corner. They can't physically like be next to.
I was just about to say that is the part of the game I dislike the most.
I like it because it's different.
See, the puzzler in me wants to fit them all together.
Yeah.
And you can't.
But
you end up like with loads of dead space.
It's crazily tight. It's a really tight economic, like it's just really tight. I don't love every game that we play of it. I think sometimes we play it and it just
someone
falls
runs
flat.
away with it, maybe.
Sometimes people can just run away with a victory, and it's like, oh, this is
I don't think it is. I think it's a feeling that somebody's running away with it, because you can collect sort of victory points, but you can see it. Whereas I prefer a game where the scoring is at the end, so that you don't get that deflated kind of feeling as you go along.
You can see someone like running away with it with piles of coins or whatever. Yeah, that bugs.
So my last overrated game,
okay,
I think, is just going to get me shot down in flames. First of all, the box is horrible.
Yep.
It is a mess. So you open the lid and it's literally just all thrown in there. It's just rubbish.
Unless, of course, you have, like our box,
now we
a
do.
LaserRox insert. Yeah. LaserRox are not a sponsor of this podcast, but if you
okay.
want to be, I don't mind. You can do a LaserRox for it, but yeah, okay.
But before we had the insert, it was just like, oh my gosh, this has been spewed up in the box. Like, no thought has gone into this box at all. And often games nowadays, they have really nice inserts, and it's well, like Endless Winter is well thought out for how everything goes back in. Anyway, they clearly couldn't care less about that. I think this game is too complicated for its own good. I don't really understand the scoring in it, to be fair. The artwork isn't even that nice. But everyone wanted it, and everyone must have it, and it cost a fortune, and that is Ark Nova.
Yeah.
And we've played a couple of games, and it's okay. But it's not coming to the table very often, just because trying to remember how to play is quite for me anyway, quite difficult. But also, it's just not something I want to spend 4 hours playing.
No, it's definitely got. It's quite a. Yeah, the production isn't there. When it was first out, and everyone was hyping after it, and it had an impressive table presence, I must admit. Like, looking at it on the table, it looks impressive. Huge, great thing. But it was so expensive. And I think when it came out, it was like £70. And in the UK, 70 quid for something that's got flimsy paper boards and, just cards and then component soup everywhere.
It's a bit like Terraforming Mars in the fact that it has lots of things that need to be on the board, but the board is literally just a bit of paper.
Yeah.
That flaps. So, you've only got to knock the table and the whole thing goes flying. I love the theme of it. I love the idea of it. I like the idea of putting cages out and getting your animals to come in and conservation. I like the theme of it. I just don't think it's been executed that well, but I think everybody wanted it and had to have it. And then I feel like they spent £80 on it and had to say it was great.
Yeah, there's always that. There will always be that thing when you get the new hotness and you've spent an absolute fortune on something. And like a lot of Kickstarters as well, you spend a fortune on it. It's really embarrassing to say, I made a mistake. This is a bit pants. But yeah, I don't mind it, but it's one that it's obviously a good game. It's obviously a reason it's number like 4 or something in BGG, and everyone But for me, I think that it definitely has something missing. Which brings us nicely onto my number 5.
Is it a good one?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's Terraforming Mars.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting you to say.
No. What were you expecting me to say?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that's... I don't know. I wouldn't say
Terraforming Mars is fine. But again, there is, in the same realms of Ark Nova, obviously, it's a really flimsy cardboard box. Component
But it's an old game, right?
Badly produced. It's an older game, yeah. But
are there new versions of it with better components or no?
No.
Oh,
right. Well, I mean, there's obviously the Ares Expedition and the dice game now, but even just the game, I don't mind it. Again, it's a fine game, but it doesn't make me go, oh, that was so good, let's get that to the table tomorrow. Let's keep pulling this out and playing it over and over again.
There's a lot of player upkeep. So you have to move the cubes along and get bigger cubes, etc. And remember to move things. And then again, that thing of like, if you knock the table, all your pieces go flying, and it's like on a number 5 and... Yeah, you can't remember what you're on.
And also the components, like the cubes, are like have got that like metal-y shine to them, but they're plastic. So when they clump together, they start chipping away. So I just think it's a fine game what you're doing, but I feel like there is and I know there's corporations to change how you play it, but I don't play it enough to play the different corporations all the time. So a lot of the time we settle for just being the normal corporations. Then we settle into we're just playing this the same way every single time.
Is it still hyped though?
It's like number 3.
Oh, right.
I'm sure it's. I'm sure it's. I might be wrong. This might be wrong, but No, it's not. It's
not. Look it up later.
I could do it right now. I think it's number. No, it's not 4 because 4 is Ark Nova, 3 is Gloomhaven, 2 is Pandemic, and 1 is Brass. But yeah,
I mean, while you look that up,
yeah,
my thoughts on overrated, underrated is that really you can't tell whether games are overrated until time has passed. So we won't know whether Three Ring Circus right now will live up to the hype because we need time to say whether it's still in the psyche of people playing board games.
Yeah. So it would be number 6. Okay, all right. I'm going to do something. You're going to have to just... Oh, have you finished?
No, because you just cut me off. I was only going to say that every day, like nowadays, everything that's new seems to come with a lot of hype. I think it's just the way of advertising. Instagram kind of pushes certain games. And I think that maybe, which we've always said, is that a return to some of the more classic games is where, the good underrated games lie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think some of the older games that we have started to take for granted, they're there, we just don't do them. I mean, looking at the top 10, of things that we know have played. So, number 1 is Brass Birmingham. 2 is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Which
I would agree with that.
I'd agree with it, but...
Maybe not number 2, though.
Yeah.
It's quite high up.
For something that can be played once, and yeah. Gloomhaven is number 3, never played it, which does look good. I would like to play it, but Ark Nova number 4, Twilight Imperium, Terraforming Mars, Dune Imperium, War of the Ring, Gloomhaven Draws a Line, Star Wars Rebellion.
Star Wars Rebellion, actually much better than I thought, and I'm not like a massive Star Wars fan, so that's saying something.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well,
but so we probably annoyed everybody now because our overrated games are the ones that are on top of the BGG.
Yeah. But
so sorry about that.
That's why they're overrated, though, because they are rated highly. Over highly.
And there are other games that you could play over those games. In fact, some of those games last so long that you could probably play 10 games in the space that you could play one of those other games.
Correct. Yes. So that was that was our underrated, overrated games. Hope you are not too angry, but let us know in any form of comments, in drop us a message on Instagram. Keep the conversation going and let us know your overrated, underrated games. I think online I recently did a poll asking questions of what people thought, and we've got people like Nick, Board Game Review UK, has said Villainous. I agree with that 100%.
Is that underrated or overrated?
Overrated.
Oh, okay.
Villainous being overrated. I agree with that 100%. That's just because it's a terrible game. PJ, the Cajun Gamer, has said Castles of Burgundy. Ooh. Board Runner has said Unmatched, and I agree with that as well. Board Runner, Max, and also Monopoly. Gloomhaven from Mo Solo BG.
Oh, so we're not the only people who think this.
No. Mad Max MDQ has said Stone Age. Board Game Roof has said Obsession.
Oh, no.
Meeple Squad has said Catan. Prob Dan Ing has said Scythe.
Oh, I would disagree with that.
Dan from DB Games has said Scythe and Distilled, which is just a terrible statement. Red Rising, maybe. Jeff Fallen Hammer has said Spirit Island. Never played it, but I know there are mixed thoughts about that.
I think that it depends what kind of gamer you are, what kind of experience you've had with the game. So if somebody taught you badly, you're going to think that wasn't great. If you learnt the rules badly, there's so many. It's arbitrary, really, because what we think is overrated, someone else thinks is fantastic.
Exactly.
So it doesn't really matter.
Board Games with Joe here has said Nemesis is overrated, and he's obviously very wrong and has problems.
So, shall we do some board game menus?
Let's do some board game menus and let these lovely people, because we've been on this podcast for a long time.
Yeah. So, at Meeple Squad said they would start with Similo and or Boop. Then their main course would be Expeditions, followed by a dessert of Raiders of the North Sea.
Sounds good.
At board.all.the.time, which you said I wouldn't read out like that. And
yes,
I did.
But you did.
Just because they have to be facetious.
Correct.
Said that her... is it a she?
It is a she.
Yeah. Said that her starter would be Hive, that her main course would be Sky Team, and that her dessert would be Lacuna. So that seems like a dinner for two.
Perfect dinner for two.
And then at Played by Millie said Sushi Go, followed by Flamecraft, and then finished with a dessert of Ready Set Bet.
Perfect. Cool.
So do you want to talk to them about how you would like board game menus?
Yeah, I thought it'd be quite fun if you want to do a board game menu to send me a soundbite. If you want to send me a soundbite over on Instagram, Get Into Games, I will put your soundbite onto the podcast and people can hear your lovely voices read out your own menu. So just say your name, your account that they can follow you at, and your starter, your main course, and your dinner. If you try to keep it under...
Starter, main course, and dinner? Starter, main course, and dessert.
That's what I said. I said that.
You're losing the
If
plot.
you heard anything else, you didn't hear anything else. You heard what I said. Well, what she said, because what she said was what I said.
No, I clarified what you said.
Nope. Yeah, so let us know. Keep it to about 30 seconds about 30 seconds would be lovely if you could. And yeah, drop me a DM and a digital message, direct message, personal message. Just send me a message.
They could send me a message.
You could send a message to...
They could send Rent Shuffle Roll a message.
Because if you send Rent Shuffle Roll a message, say, hi, Rent Shuffle Roll, I hear you sponsor a wonderful podcast, and if I use the code GITG50 on your website, I will get 50% off my first month, and that would be correct. That's what you would get. So remember that. Please leave a rating and a review on your podcatcher of choice for us.
5-star rating.
5 stars, please. 5 stars.
No less.
No less. You can do 4.
No.
But I don't like it, so do 5. If you write a review on your podcatcher of choice, so if it's the apples, because I think the apples are the one you can write the review. If you write that, I will also read your lovely review out on the podcast too.
Only if it's good.
So, yeah, a 5-star. So yeah, if you want to be named, shamed, and talked about
no,
on
not
the
shamed. We're not going to shame people being nice to us, are we?
they might feel the shame.
Oh, Craig.
I don't
Putting them
know.
off.
I don't know how podcasts work, but this
Anyway,
is really
wrap it
long. Okay, wrapping up with a lovely bow. Thanks for watching with your ears.
And remember
What are we going to remember?
to get into games.
Oh yeah, remember to get into games. See you next week.